Dystopia warning, obviously. I wasn't even supposed to make a video today. I was going to do something more preferable to politics, like, I don't know, scream into a pillow or stare at a wall blankly for a couple of hours, you know, whatever takes the edge off. But then I saw something in Private Eye that can't be ignored, and it's something that you should know about, because it enragingly, yet not surprisingly, relates to what looks like possible collusion between Greater Manchester Police Chief Stephen Watson and the Conservative government to investigate one of their key political rivals, Shadow Deputy Prime Minister and top-tier legend Angela Rayner. First off, hats off to Private Eye for putting in the freedom of information request that led to this information coming to the surface. But in summary, here's what they found. The police chief constable, Stephen Watson of Greater Manchester, who unexpectedly reopened the case into Angela Raina regarding a house sale over a decade ago, was a speaker at last year's Tory Conference in Manchester. Not just that, he accepted an invite to address the fringe meeting of the Freedom Association, which sits on the right side of the party. The meeting was titled, "Has the Rule of Law Broken Down?" alongside Andrew Allison, who has just joined a particularly mad faction of the Conservative Party known as the Popular Conservatism Fringe. PopCon for short. Absolute fucking nutters for long. This faction backs the likes of Braverman and Liz Truss, who you might remember tanked our economy. It was also hosted by David Campbell Bannerman, former UKIP deputy leader who came back to the Conservative Party. Now, the emails which were inviting him, which were released under the Freedom of Information Act, show that the Freedom Associated wanted him to take a political stance, and he happily took a culture war approach. Yeah. He said crime was driven by a new generation of people who have never had anyone say no to them, and therefore the respect for hierarchy has broken down. Remember the climate that this was happening in which every week a new officer was being found to have committed some form of serious misconduct, including at the Sarah Everard vigil, and in the wake of many WhatsApps being released showing serious police misconduct. But yeah, it's the generation who don't like people saying no to them, isn't it? That's not even taking into account that as a police chief constable, he should not be taking a political line. Now, Private Eye asked Greater Manchester Police a very reasonable question. Did the appearance at a right-wing Conservative event prove that he was partisan because he'd not attended Labour events for balance? And if this political sway was linked to his decision to reopen the investigation into Angela Rayner? As you can see above, they pretty much brushed it off. But what they didn't say is that since the event, Watson has become something of a Tory darling. In fact, after the event in November, James Daly and other backbenchers started suggesting that Watson should take over the Met Police because his robust approach would replace the current woke, weak policing. Now, I'm no fan of the Met Police, but they've been put in positions of literal danger by the far-right rhetoric of people like Braverman, inciting the far-right to go out and commit crimes, especially on Armistice Day and Remembrance Weekend. Now, there's one thing that is very important here. Daly made those comments, right, about Watson. Guess who wrote to Greater Manchester Police asking for the case to be reopened? James Daly MP. In short, this stinks. They're not just investigating her, no, they've added 12 officers onto the team to target one woman, not just a woman, a political rival of the government, over what amounts to £1,500 worth of capital gains tax on a house sale from a decade ago. If all politicians are treated equally, then why isn't this seen as a honest mistake? If it is a mistake, it's already been investigated and there's been no case to answer for Angela Rayner. But say it is. What about Jeremy Hunt's failure to declare 7 luxury flats for which he was found to have breached money laundering rules? If my memory serves me correctly, they cost about £3.5 million. Where was the investigation into that, or Nadeem Zahawi's tax avoidance? Again, in the millions. Now, taking all of this into account, what do you think are Angela Rayner's chances of getting a fair investigation here? Do you think it's going to be an unbiased investigation into an exceedingly minor oversight? Because as far as I'm concerned, there's no chance. This enmeshment of the Conservative government and the police is wholly undemocratic, but what it looks like is probably exactly what it is. Conservative government colluding with the police in order to try and bring down a political rival. And it's not just here. It's all over the right-wing press. I mean, Dan Hodges of the Mail has been running commentary on this for now 18 days. It's got to the point where it's like he's living on the berries in her front garden, which he is camped on. It is not the approach that he would take for a Conservative MP. And this is how the client media operates. He took a similar approach over Currygate, another situation in which a key political rival of the government was reinvestigated when it had previously been found that he had no case to answer due to pressure from a tabloid newspaper. And here's something important that they failed to tell you about that too. Do you want to know who took that picture of Keir Starmer feeding his team after a day of campaigning, which was within the rules at the time? Do you want to know who took it? Ivo Dellingpole, the son of far-right Breitbart writer James Dellingpole. His son just so happened to be on the outskirts of Durham, accessed the building via a private drive, and just so happened to take these photos. Now, Breitbart was previously run by Steve Bannon and has white nationalists, anti-lockdown folk and anti-vaxxers amongst its ranks. What's particularly galling about all of this is that the media and the police are happy to go after the opposition over relatively minor situations. But where were the police when people were hauling bags of booze into Number 10 during lockdown parties? Were they assigning loads of resources to investigate? Were they intervening when they knew that they were taking place at Number 10? What about the billions in fraud, or the theft of taxpayers' money, or excessive cocaine use in the House of Commons? No, they don't intervene there, do they? Nor do they intervene when, Tory MPs are caught in national security risks, honey trap scandals, rolling out of brothels with their trousers round their ankles. Nah. So why do they do nothing there and they smear Raina? I'd say institutional sexism has something to do with it. What it boils down to is that these men don't think that she has a right to be there. She's not super rich, she grew up in a council estate, and from there she fought her way to shadow Deputy Prime Minister, overcoming unimaginable hardship. Whereas all those rich blokes aren't there because they're talented or because they fought for it, but because their dad was rich enough to send them to a fancy school. And they feel it's their birthright to not just rule over us, but people like Angela Rayner, women like Angela Rayner. She wipes the floor with them. I imagine a lot of them like being told what to do and pay a lot for it in certain Soho residences. They don't see those women as their equals, and they don't see her as their equal either. How dare she, is probably the overarching question that they ask. When in their hypocrisy and misogyny, as they accuse her of things they've done 10 times worse, we should be asking how fucking dare they?